Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to a new live episode of He Said, He Said, He Said, a look at the world from a seasoned Black man's perspective, because one perspective is just not enough. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of February, and we are closing Black History Month. I want to say thank you to all of you who've been joining us the whole month for our shows. We are so glad that you have been here, and you guys have made this one of the incredible Black History Month that I can think of in a very long time. And also, tonight marks the 5th anniversary of He Said, He Said, He Said Live since we've been on the air. And myself, my co-creator, the late Bosch Bodie, and Jacques Whitfield, we launched our first show this week with the episode being Facing Your Fears. So how about that? But again, I want to thank you all for being with us for 5 years, and we have a lot more that we're going to offer you in the years to come. But happy anniversary to us. Our show tonight marks our closing conversation for Black History Month. And we wanted to end it with purpose, with power, and with information that truly matters right now. So we've invited a very special guest to help us unpack an issue that is impacting families, communities, and the country in a very real and immediate way. Tonight, we're joined by nationally respected immigration attorney, Allen Orr Jr., founder of Orr Immigration Law Firm and former president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, bringing expert clarity to immigration, deportation, and the law. At a time when confusion is high and the stakes are even higher, Allen is here to help us separate fact from fear and explain what people really need to know right now. And also happening this week, I need to, if you guys haven't seen this, it happened at the British Academy Film Awards called BAFTA, the BAFTA Awards. And during a ceremony this week, while actors Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan were on stage presenting the award for special visual effects, a man in the audience shouted the N-word. The individual, John Davison, whose life story inspired the acclaimed film, I Swear, reportedly lives with Tourette syndrome. Now, let me say this clearly. Tourette syndrome is real. It's a neurological condition, and compassion for medical conditions really do matter. But here's where the discomfort sets in for me. The broadcast reportedly had a 2-hour delay. We've seen delays used to edit political statements. We've seen delays used to protect brand image. So how did the same delay being in place was a racial slur directed at 2 Black men allowed to air? That's not a medical question. That's a production question, and that's an accountability question. And what troubles me the most is the predictable pattern that often follows moments like this. The expectation that Black audiences should simply absorb the harm, accept the explanation, and move on. That our discomfort must take a back seat to institutional convenience. Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan handled the moment with grace and professionalism. They continue to do their jobs. But professionalism should not require people to silently endure public humiliation. The issues here is not about attacking someone for a disability. It's about whether an organization like BAFTA had a responsibility, especially with the broadcast delay, to protect the presenters and its audiences from harm. So when harm happens in real time, maybe it's unavoidable. I get it. When harm airs 2 hours later, that's a choice. And that's where accountability comes in, and BAFTA needs to do better and make this right. And before I bring the guys on, I also want to share with you something that happened this week that was deeply personal to me. And you all saw it. Last Sunday, the beautiful city of Puerto Vallarta, commonly known as PV, my happy place, found itself under attack amid violent clashes tied to cartel activity in the region. Reports indicated that the unrest stemmed from security operations targeting organized crime, triggering retaliatory violence that spilled into the public view. To see images of armored vehicles, roadblocks, and my favorite Costco, and the fear in the place that for me represents peace, joy, and community, it was heartbreaking. I've been going to PV for many years. It's a place where I go to reset. It's where I meet the ocean. It's where I have a sense of family. It's where people welcome you with warmth. And your dollar goes a long way in PV. And it's where life feels just a little lighter. Seeing it under those circumstances really shook me. But what I also saw was resilience. Authorities moved quickly, calm was restored, and the spirit of the people, that spirit I've come to love, did not break. I have prayed for everybody who was involved in all of that and who were there, for the families, the workers, the visitors, that they're all safe, for my friends who have property there, that they were able, and the people who were visiting were able to get out if they needed, to get home. And I hope that they continue to heal. But PV is more than just a headline. It is beauty, it is culture, it is joy. And I believe that it's already on its way back to being that welcoming, vibrant city that so many of us know and love. I love you, PV. I'm praying for you to get back on your feet, and I hope to see you soon. And ladies and gentlemen, I did not get paid for that PSA. That was truly from the heart. All right. So again, welcome to our show tonight. We have a wonderful guest here, and I can't wait to share him with all of you. So if you all are ready, let's get on with the chat.
Good evening.
Oh, gentlemen of distinction. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How you guys doing tonight? Happy Friday.
Yes, happy Friday. It is
Friday.
Friday of
the month.
Yeah.
The last Friday of the month. Yes. You guys have had a great week?
I did. It was a good week. I'm no complaints. I'm glad. Yeah. And you?
I did, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be scared. They all up here. They acting like they're silent right now, but trust me, they got a word for you all tonight. So let me go ahead and have them say hello to all of you, so we can break that ice. How you doing, Monica? Kendall, thank you for being here. Michelle Sims, thank you for being here. Patrice Wallace, I missed you last week, Patrice. I didn't see you there, but thank you. Thank you. Rick Irick is here. I love seeing you, my brother. Michelle Bowie, hey, Michi.
What's Mitch?
Rose is here. Robert is here. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Thank you. And thank you for the happy anniversary well wishes. Can you believe 5 years?
I know.
Oh my God.
5 years. Look at that. Who knew?
Well, tonight in the scheme of, we have a very serious show with a phenomenal guest, ladies and gentlemen. We thought that we would open the show with some fun with you guys that we know that you all will be a part of for the chat. So I want to, bring you all into our living room very closely tonight, because we're talking about, we're going to take a step back. And we're going to go back in time. And we're not talking about Google or Amazon or streaming, just memory. We will throw out some images on the screen. And I want to ask you one simple question. Do you remember when?
Ooh-wee.
When candy stained your tongue. When a paper felt like powder. I'm sorry. When a pager, I said paper. When a pager felt like power. When the phone book was your search engine. So let's see who really lived it and who just heard about it. So we're gonna let Sean take it away. Sean, what you talking about, Sean?
Yeah, this is pretty interesting because I do love going back into time, and so I want to start with the sweets, the candy, the sidewalk culture, if you will. Who remembers Pop Rocks? Now, the thing I most remember about Pop Rock was that if you put it in, I think Pepsi or Coke, there was a possibility that it would kill you. You remember that?
It would explode. Like if you put it in the, like it literally would, pop up. Yeah.
Well, I stayed away from Pop Rocks as a kid in the 80s.
I've never had them.
Well, you weren't missing too much. But I will say this. I do remember and still love my Now and Laters. It was like 5 cents for like, it came in little small packs, but like 5 cents for a pack. The Boston baked beans were a favorite of mine back then. Okay, I could eat those things all day as a kid. And who did not love Kool-Aid? And what was your favorite flavor of Kool-Aid? That's the question.
Red. Even though
it was grape.
It was great. Well, and my family was cute because we would mix flavors. We do like, the grape with the lemonade. So, and it would have that little sweet tang. We
that
were
was
cute.
sacrilegious in my household.
It was what?
Sacrilegious to mix.
And see, we have a viewer. Rose said that her favorite one was grape. Yeah, look, grape Kool-Aid. I think Kool-Aid was the first sign that I was obese as a child because it had so much sugar, and I just couldn't lose weight for anything. And as I got older, I realized it was all the sugar because I drank Kool-Aid every day.
Religiously.
Every single day. Yep. Well, I'm going to thank you, Sean. I'm going to take you back. Sean, that was real sweet. No pun intended. But I'm going to take you all back that the reason why some of us are sitting here looking the way we're looking right now is because of the infamous Jerry curl. How many of you all remember this? I mean, look, your hair went from nappy to curly in a blink of an eye. Sean, did you have a Jerry curl? Because I know you say
I did not. No.
Well, some of them were wet, but then some of them were as I'm not gonna say if you made more money, but some people knew how to buy the ones that didn't drip on your clothes. Okay. Yeah,
I think as time went on, they got better. Because I think initially they all had to be kind of like that drippy kind of thing. And I agree with you. I think there were people who went to more skilled stylists who also had ways of not making it look, because, we all remember that scene from, I think it was Coming to America, where, the guy sits on the couch and gets up and the whole couch is wet and all that. So yeah, there were some horror stories related to Jerry curls.
Now, I do remember that it would take, a few hours for some folks to get that whole process completed?
Ooh. Well, sometimes, again, it got better over the years, but nowadays they have Beijing, and that stays on your couch. That these guys went from Jerry curl to Beijing now. That's that black tar, like kind of look, and God bless them. And you couldn't have a Jerry curl if you didn't have these shoes. Your shoes had to be right. Your platforms. Now, truth be told, I wore a pair of these to my graduation in the 9th grade.
Guilty. Guilty.
I think these are it.
Similar to that. I had some that looked like these brown ones here.
And guys want to put these on now. I mean, these are.
I almost broke my ankle coming down some steps in those things.
Well, it's just that your legs still look youthful, Bobby, I'm sure, but it's just, it's the stamina behind it. I get it. You traded your stamina in for look. I believe it. And last, I want to ask you, do you remember when now people are wearing these right now, high-waisted bell-bottom pants? How many guys are you not seeing in some of these award shows trying to get their waistline cinched so that they can wear pants like this? And this was sexy. I'm sorry. I thought you couldn't tell me the Commodores would come on stage or Earth, Wind and Fire and I would be like, or Teddy Pendergrass.
Oh Lord,
Mm.
this is a take me back session for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is how they look. And to be honest, nothing sagging. You don't see nothing sagging.
Nope.
You know, if
Nope.
they turn around, you don't see no pants sagging off their behinds or anything like that.
You did see some mighty low plunging shirts, as this brother. People wouldn't button their shirts for nothing, but there was no pants sagging. No.
No.
It was,
So
a great look. I still like that look. But how many people today, even those in the 20s, have a 32-inch waist or 30-inch waist?
Well, Troy Patterson is in the house. He said they make body contouring for men now. Thank you. And with Wegovy and some of these other.
Oh Lord. Okay.
If you want a 29-inch waist, you can have a 29-inch waist. You can have a 29-inch waist. Okay?
You can pay for it.
Okay. Yeah, but
I'm gonna take this in a slightly different direction. Okay. And that is the direction of technology. Let's go back a little bit in terms of technology. Now, our first image here is one that one may question. Now, some people may think that click clacks aren't technology, but let's define technology properly. So if we define technology, that it is the application of tools and materials to create function. And in the 70s, these little plastic spheres that many of us remember on a string represented materials, engineering, physics in motion, and even the beginning of modern toy safety regulation. So yes, this was technology. And Alvin and I were discussing previously that, you know, this was an acquired skill with click clacks. And once you got it, you were jamming, but everybody at least hit themselves or hit somebody else accidentally with one of these damn things and almost knocked somebody out.
Well, as we would have our chief educator on here to let everybody know that click clacks was technology.
A little bit of technology as well, but
a little bit of technology is good. But Bobby, I didn't know that, so thank you.
Absolutely. And we want to hear from you all because I know that some of you all that are watching remember these dang on click clacks. I know they did. Okay, Troy's still talking about body contouring, but you know. So in addition to click clacks, let's look at who didn't have a pager. Remember these? Well, most of the people that had pagers when I remember them, they were like either, you know, players, drug dealers, you know, those were the people.
Or cheating.
Or cheating, right. That's why I said players, like, you know, who had pagers, okay? Now, everybody, of course, has, you know, their cell phone, their laptops and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't the case always, people. Let's go back. Mm-hmm. Bam. You remember these babies here? Click.
That's how I learned to type.
You learned to type on one of these?
Mm-hmm.
So don't tell me you don't remember some of the stuff we're talking about then. If this is what you learned to type on, Sean.
I went to a very small rural town, Bobby, so we had no money.
Lord.
I think they should put these back in schools. I really do, because right now we're dealing with children who don't even know how to cursive write. They don't. You give them a pen and say, spell your name. If it's not on a document that they can type on, a lot of them.
It's true. It's very true.
They don't know how.
Last image for technology. Do we have one more? Is that it? Was that our last technology?
No, I think.
Oh. Okay. I don't know about you all, but we all had this little area and the phone that was like right there. And in some cases, let's not forget that lovely princess phone that was often on the wall with that coily cord that stretched maybe 5,000 feet. So you could pretty much walk through the entire house.
That's when your parents knew all your business.
Your business.
Because you had to sit right there because the phone wasn't going nowhere. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when a lot of us, we were kind of living a holy life and we weren't, you know, out in the streets a lot.
Are we spelling HOLY or holy, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, he said, okay. Thank you all. Who is this? Mackie Samuel says, why do you believe that individuals that are not legally authorized to reside in the United States should be allowed to remain in the United States?
We're getting to that.
We're going to get to that, Mackie. And you know what? I'm so glad you're here because you know what? Now's the time to do it. Ladies,
and we got the right person. And we got the right person.
We got the right person for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, Bobby, thank you and Sean for helping us take our viewers back a little bit because
anytime.
We have a show that we really need to talk about tonight. So can I go ahead and introduce our special guest, please?
Please.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, he is making his return visit to He Said Live. And this time, we are thrilled to have him for a full, no-holds-barred interview. You've seen him breaking it down on CNN. You've watched him challenge narratives on Fox. You've heard him cut through the noise on MSNBC. And tonight, he's right here on our platform, and He Said. He is the founder of the Orr Immigration Law Firm, former president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and one of the nation's leading authorities on employer immigration compliance and federal policy. This is a man who has overseen large-scale I-9 audits for Fortune 10 companies. A man who has helped shape the national conversation around labor certification, enforcement, and what immigration law actually looks like at the highest level. When it comes to immigration law, Allen Orr doesn't speculate. He doesn't guess. He operates in it at the highest level possible, as I said. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the He Said stage, Allen Orr.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Allen, welcome back.
Brother,
Thanks for having me, and congratulations on 5 years and to 5 more years. This type of media is very important. As we see the consolidation of media and information, it's important that our voices are heard.
Allen, thank you so much, my friend. And again, glad to have you here. So I have the pleasure of kicking off my first question for you. So, Allen, before we get into the current immigration climate, I'd like to start at the beginning with you. What originally pulled you into immigration law, and what continues to fuel your commitment to this work?
Sure. So that's a pretty easy one. So I grew up on a farm, and in growing up on a farm, I decided I was a follower of Martin Luther King. I wanted to go to his college. I went to Morehouse College. I cared about the environment. I was going to be an environmental lawyer. So I knew from a young age I wanted to be a lawyer, and I was going to focus on the environment. And that took me to Morehouse, and Morehouse took me to Howard Law. And at Howard Law, I was the president of the immigration law section, and I was getting the school doing recycling and all the things, because if the earth isn't okay, we're not okay. And during that same time at my matriculation at Howard Law, I took an immigration class, and I made fairly well, almost the highest or second highest grade in the class, can't remember exactly. And a corporation came to me and offered me a job my second year of law school. And that's what brought me to the table of immigration. It was sort of this first intro to immigration, of sort of doing this business immigration. And when I started doing it, I started to realize that the environment also includes the people. And in doing immigration law, I'm helping individuals change their lives and better their lives to the American dream, or whatever dream they may seek to have some type of liberty that we sort of found in this country. And so I fell in love with it. And so then for 12 years, I worked at the world's largest law firm. And within that time, I helped a number of individuals get green cards and become United States citizens. And the one thing that you will always remember is they remember you because you're the person that gave them access. And nothing gave me pride, besides the making the money, was that I was actually helping individuals and changing their lives. And they would send me when their children were born and all the announcements of life that sort of happened. And it sort of brought my soul and filled me with life. And then during my 10th year, I sort of saw it and understood that immigration was also important to Black people in the Black community. And it's part of a civil rights action, right? I mean, immigration is what's being used to deteriorate civil rights laws right now. So there needed to be someone, because there's a lot of conversation between Blacks that were born here and Blacks that migrated here, of being a Black that was born here, a Black that went to Morehouse College, a Black that went to Howard Law, that understood the importance of opening the doors for other people of color around the world to migrate to the United States and to stay in that space, and to sort of do and replicate what we also saw in the Latin community and the Hispanic community, where we saw the doors opening for migration and immigration. So that's what sort of drove me here and keeps me here, is the fundamental understanding for Black people in this country that immigration, and including the migration from the continent and the Caribbean, is very important to the Black population within the country and our political power.
Mm-hmm. Well, Allen, I had a follow-up question for you, but you just did what you normally do, and you just laid it out. So I'm gonna take another route and say, because this seemed to have been the life that you've always lived. I mean, so was there another career path that you thought about rather than going into immigration?
So within law, just environmental law, which I always have sort of done on the side, and I care about the education of children, much like everyone on this podcast and on this performance right now. You really care about, so I've dedicated a lot of time to that. But no, I have a very single focus, and once I get involved in something, I go deep. And there have been now, I guess there have been 77 presidents of the American Immigration Lawyers Society, which is around 18,000 immigration lawyers, and I'm the only Black one in the history of the organization. So in order to achieve that, it took me, a good 15 years to sort of get the focus and to sort of build up the momentum to get there. And then once in the position, people sort of didn't know, people think it's a DEI thing until you get there and you lead in the way that you lead. And so it was important for me and important for me today to remain in that space so that people know that immigration is also about Black people. It's also about us.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you open your dictionary and the word focus comes up, Allen's picture will be right there beside it. Allen, thank you for that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I want to thank you as well, Allen. And again, good evening, and thank you for gracing me with your time. When I hear you, I'm hearing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because people forget how the civil rights legislation came about, because immigration was a big part of that. The March on Washington also was about immigration. And so things have changed over the last 60 years. So with that being said, okay, now you are on the front line when it comes to immigration. You're, like I said, you're the lawyer, you're the bar leader, okay, and you're a policy strategist. So how has your understanding of power when it comes to immigration shifted over the course of your career? And where do you think that real power sits today?
So I think it's important that we go back in time, and I'm glad that you brought up Dr. King and his movement for the United States and the world, because when we think about this country, it is civil rights movement that made the country what it is today. So without the civil rights movement, there would be no immigration for anyone, right? The Civil Rights Act changed immigration for everyone and open immigration for around the world. So it is the Black people and the other small communities that joined together to change this country in the civil rights movement that allowed for the migration that we have today. And so on that foundation, everything else this country has achieved is based on sort of that migration, right? The students that came here, the people that fled here, the people who created companies, the building of the world around it. So in that is the power of the promise of the country, which we should hold people accountable to, right? That's what Martin Luther King reminds us of. We just want you to be who you said it was on paper.
Yeah.
And once we saw this sort of increase that we sort of saw through the 80s and the 90s, right? And really during the 80s was the big influx of Black immigrants to this country from the Caribbean and from Africa. And as of last year, the largest educated group of migrants came from Nigeria across the board, right? Mm-hmm. So out of the world, they were coming from Nigeria. The best doctors were coming from Nigeria. So when we think about this power of people, we think about the connection of the world and the promise of the country. And right now, what we see in every arena is that for whatever reason, people who have a fiction, right? So we think of race as a fiction. In my world, it's a fiction that's created in books just to divide people and separate them. People who are white have decided that there are too many others coming here and they're taking something away from us. This sum zero concept that really doesn't even exist in this country, right? When you sort of look at the heads of companies or anywhere, it's generally all white men. When you look at Congress, when you look at the Supreme Court, when you look at anywhere, there is no real threat to anyone losing any power, but they see the population, the change and the shift. And one of the things that you sort of talk about in the evolution of people is you could probably get a white person from a Black person, but you can't get a Black person from a white person in migration in any way. And as they see that change in this country, there's a threat to them because they don't see a world where everyone can sit at the table and survive and build together, which is a fiction of this country. And so the real power has always been held in that room that decides who comes in and who doesn't come in. And this administration has proven that the executive branch is not the right branch to hold the power of deciding who comes in and who doesn't come in. Executive alone is a power that belongs to Congress. But in the Congress has done nothing with regards to this. it now becomes the executive branch sort of playground to sort of push the limits, not just the limits of the law, but the limits of the very things that protect us, equal protection, right? The right search and seizure. All of these things that are protected us under the Constitution are under attack because of immigration. Also because of immigration, we now see that 70% of Africa right now can't get a visa to come to this country. It is changing the way the country looks by controlling who will migrate here. They realize over time that you can't stop the numbers within the reproduction within this country, but what you can do is stop for people coming in. And in this space is why we now see attacks on birthright citizenship, because they say, okay, people are going to birth, there's this interracial marriage thing going on, there are people who are becoming browner and browner. How can I sort of attack this? The only way to attack it, besides the exclusion of immigration, is to start saying, you know what, you were born here, but you don't get to be a citizen because your parents weren't a citizen.
Mm-hmm. That was very profound, and there's a lot to take in there. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that legally the power sits with Congress, but right now the White House is kind of taking that power. So what can Congress do to claim its power when it comes to immigration?
So I think the first thing we need to do is we need to change some of the members of Congress because they've been there for a while. And I think it's consistent among the both parties. It's been over 30 years since we've had any immigration reform, and that's on both parties. People are playing games with regards to people's lives and the way we treat individuals. We're building secondhand citizens that we said after World War II did not exist. And that's a problem in itself, right? Those are just issues of humanity with regards to treating people like chattel and things. People are not things. So let's remove that concept from the conversation. Congress needs to be reformed and then pushed forward. President Obama sat at the chance to change immigration, but he had to choose between doing one thing at a time, which I hope whoever takes the next lead does it exact same way this administration, do everything at one time, right? Don't wait. He did healthcare, and once he got healthcare, he didn't have the numbers to do the immigration. Then there was a lot of change within the country. People challenged different presidencies. We got to the end of the Biden administration. There were challenges on immigration and the border. President Biden presented an immigration bill. Congress accepted that immigration bill. And then the current president, who was not the president at the time, said, don't pass it because I want to use immigration to run on immigration reform. So as we look at the State of the Union and we think, oh, this president was saying we had open borders and all these things that occurred, that is not true, because there was a bill that he stopped that was going through Congress, which is the right way to do it, that was almost 99% enforcement. That could have changed the way we sort of look at the world. So change Congress first, then have Congress know that this is important. And part of that is we need to be more active in voting. Right now, there's a chance during the midterms for people to go out and make sure the right candidates on the ticket to choose between the different parties. We need to vote at a higher number to make sure we get the people in office that actually care about us. We have a Congress full of people, everyday people, which was cute in the beginning of Congress. But in this stage of life, we need some type of philosopher people in there, or some people who are going to really go in there and vote their office. I believe that there are some individuals who have GEDs who belong in Congress. Ms. Boebert is not one of them, because she does not represent what this country's best is or what the best interest of the company is. When you have a bunch of people who are car salesmen, business people, dentists, eye doctors in Congress who don't know everything that Congress has control over, and they're sort of randomly shooting in the dark, they might not make the best decisions for the country. And we see that now in this AI arena where there's been no legislation on AI, and now we see AI might take 50% of the jobs, or it may act without prompting from a human that could lead to our destruction. We need to be smarter about these things. And we have a body that is Article 1 of our Constitution is Congress. So Congress needs to take care of all of these things.
Thank you. Thank you.
Allen, in this current immigration climate, we hear a great deal about tough enforcement, extremely tough enforcement. And you have framed it as both a constitutional and rule of law crisis. So will you share with us the most misunderstood legal consequence of today's enforcement first approach? Give us a little bit of insight on that.
So let's look at history. Let's do science first, right? Because I think if you do something demonstratively through science and it demonstrates to you that it doesn't work, then we should say that doesn't work, right? So we've been doing enforcement now for the last 30 years, right? Since September 11th, there's been this big enforcement change, and we've just been doing enforcement. Currently, this administration, it is just ICE, meaning literally just ICE doing whatever they want to do, no justice anywhere. Has it changed anything for anyone? Only United States citizens who are having a loss of their rights and a loss of wealth due to this high level of enforcement. Because this concept of like playing school and you need a bad student in the school to sort of blame everything, this scapegoating is something Black people should be familiar with. Because when you represent 13% of the population, how can you be all of their problems? Whether it be healthcare, whether it be poverty, whether it be food stamps, whatever it is, when you're 13% of the population, there is absolutely no way you represent a majority of the people on any of those issues. None of them. The only place where Black people represent a majority of people, perhaps per capita, is within prison, and we know why that exists, right? So that's the racist action sort of in action. So when we think about this enforcement thing, we should think about what immigration is. So immigration, under the current legislation, is a civil crime. Civil crimes don't target or go to the 8th Amendment, so therefore they should not be punishment. There should be no punishment involved. So if you're building detention centers to house people indefinitely of all ages who have no crimes other than being here undocumented, then does that make sense to the American taxpayer? I argue it does not. This fiction of enforcement with these private prisons that were ended under the Biden and Obama administration are a way of funneling taxpayer dollars to private companies. One company in 1 year had a profit of $25 million to detain some 70,000 individuals. You can almost do the math. You could give the immigrants the money to go home. It would be cheaper, right? And we're talking about children and the like, right? Then we have people who were deported to a third country that has recently been stopped in court that we spent $40 million to remove some 300 individuals. Math-wise, that's around $133,000 each. That's just to remove them to the country. That's not the flight, that's not the food, that's not the arrangements. It's not cost beneficial for us to do enforcement only to these individuals.
Absolutely.
Equity-wise, most of these individuals have been here for 10 years or more. If you just walked across the border yesterday and you're deported, I have no issue with that. Being in the country without documentation, I have no issue with removing you. Put you in removal court, run it through the process. You don't need to be detained. You don't need to be locked up. There's an equity argument for me. If you've been here for 5 years or more, paying whatever taxes you pay. So you say you're not paying federal taxes, or you're paying state taxes. Every time you buy food, you're paying taxes, right? You have a home, you have a bank account. All these things exist where we knew you were here. There's an equity argument that says you have a United States kid. There's an equity argument to me that says you knew I was here, or you should have known I was here. If you didn't do anything within that time period, then I have a right for staying here and remaining in the United States, just like the damn Pilgrims did. So if you want to have a conversation about the history of this country, then let's have a conversation about the history of this country, because some things are artificial, and that's one of the things that's very much artificial in the States. And to end this for you, in no circumstance, in any world, should someone die in immigration detention. And so far this year, we've had 30 people die in immigration detention for a concept that someone says they don't have the right papers to be in this country. You call it undocumented papers. You shouldn't have to die because you don't have papers.
It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Thank you very much for that. But I want to follow up with a very quick question for you. Now, here in DC, I've been driving through the city and seen an increase in National Guard and the presence of ICE agents, for instance, and actually came across once an actual apprehension being in progress. What does one do? How can one be helpful in the moment of coming to witness something of this nature? Because it's really unsettling. You don't know what to do. You're trying to stay safe yourself. But if there's one thing that one can do to be of help in that particular situation, what would you suggest they do?
All right. So don't stop the police officer from doing whatever duties they're doing. That's first. Second, you should record everything and take notes to the best of your responsibility. You can shout out, is there somebody you need me to contact on your behalf? And they shout back to you, that's a conversation. And I think that's the second phrase of where you are. I think primarily the first phrase is, what if it's you, right? More than likely, and we've seen in Chicago, the chances of it, in Minneapolis, the chances of it being someone over there, but it might actually be you. It might be you, the African-American that's born here that doesn't carry their birth certificate, that doesn't have their passport, right? Who looks with curly hair, or may be biracial and present themselves, or may speak Spanish as their primary language that stopped. And those concerns are more at heart to me of saying, how do you prove your citizenship and what should your concerns be? And for me, the first thing is, it's time to get your birth certificate from your mom, unfortunately. You need to know where it is. You need to have it with you if you don't have a passport. You can have a copy of it, but now is not the time to risk not having these documents on you, because if you are detained and they suspect you are not a citizen, then you're going to have a week's worth of detention before you're able to get out. So you get to make that decision, that choice, to be prepared to avoid the issue. While there's no regulation under the law that you have to carry those documents with you, my answer to you is, it's not required, but let's not have a dance right now with this administration that does not care about us, who's going to lock us up in a situation that may present us with a large problem. If you don't have a passport because of financial issues, you can apply for a passport from the State Department with a fee waiver if you get other public assistance. So if that's your issue, then definitely look at that right now and start getting your passport for everyone in your family to sort of have those concerns. Generally, when an ICE officer stops you, here's the interaction that goes through. First thing you say to them is, I'm a United States citizen. An ICE officer is the equivalent of a mall cop. They have no jurisdiction over United States citizens unless there is an emergency. So once you distinguish that you are a United States citizen, they should let you be on your way, right? If they detain you, the next answer is, am I free to go? If they say you're free to go on your merry way. If they don't say you're free to go and they're detaining you, then ask for a lawyer and then remain silent. Now's not the time to have conversations. In all circumstances, if you are an individual on a dark road or by yourself, ICE is generally 4 to 6 people deep that you've seen now in ICE investigation. So if it's 1 or 2 people, I would pull into some place where there are people that are going to see you. Pull in front of a camera. Look for those things that will help you save your life, right? Give them the indication. Put on your blinkers. Put in your hazard lights and say, I'm just going somewhere where people can see what's happening, because you don't want to be isolated in any interaction with law enforcement.
Allen, thank you. I'm sorry, Bobby. So first of all, let me get to a couple of questions. Wow, you guys, I want to start with Mackie Samuels. He said, although there are some systemic issues with mass incarceration, do you also believe that abhorrent behavior and criminal activity from the prosecuted are also responsible for mass incarceration?
So the answer is no. So let's just deal with the reality. Once again, let's go back to science. 70 to 80% of the individuals who are locked up in immigration right now have no offenses, none at all, not even a traffic violation, right? Overall, in history of the United States, people who are foreign-born create way more crimes than people who are foreign-born because of the very reason of being excluded, right? So those are just issues that exist in that manner. Now let's talk about the people they've been detaining, right? People with young children. So if you didn't go to school for criminal justice, I will just tell you this fact. Google it if you don't want to believe me. People with young children are less likely to create a crime than people with no children. So you tell me that a man with a 3-year-old and a newborn needs to be in a family detention center in Dilley doesn't make sense to me, because he was providing for them on the outskirts, and he's most likely not going to present a crime, and he's not going to run away. Those are just the numbers. So yes, there are repercussions for things that happen, and detention may be possible under criminal law. Immigration is not a criminal law. So you say to me, Allen, well, look, there was this immigrant who was doing a DUI. There was this immigrant who did the Lincoln Raleigh Act in Florida. Great. Yes, immigrants do create crime at a much lower rate, but their immigrant status had absolutely nothing to do with the crime that were committed. So therefore, attacking immigration is not your issue. Maybe you should be talking about something else: gun reform, better jobs, better society, something other than their immigration status. It's easy to scapegoat and say, oh, it's because of the immigrants. If every immigrant was removed from the United States, there would still be Americans dying today.
Thank you, Allen. So, Allen, you advise major employers on compliance and risk, but you also talk about dignity, equity, and worker protections. how do you connect corporate immigration strategy with civil rights?
Right. So I think we should remember that the funneling and the change was financial for civil rights, right? It made sense for companies to do this change. And it would make sense for companies who know that they survive on sometimes undocumented immigrants under lower half to change the system. So what we see, with Walmart, we see it with Tyson's Chicken, we see with most farms, is that it's difficult to find an American who's willing to do those jobs. There are many cases where a company will hire someone, give them a cell phone, and put them on this job, and they won't even make it to the end of the day, picking strawberries, blueberries, or the like. And if we lose all the farming in this country and we have to import all of our fruit from other countries, we have a number of concerns beyond cost, right? What was the soil? What are the conditions? What pesticides were on them? All those different things. So it is not an exclusive thing. Yes, I help employers understand if someone has work authorization so that they don't get in trouble with the law. But at the same time, I take those employers to go forth to push Congress to say, we need change in immigration law because I need workers and this system isn't working for me. And that is what's led to the increase of H-2Bs, which are seasonal workers for farmers. That's the push that needs to happen. You can have both. It isn't a matter of saying the rule of law doesn't work. This country is based on having a pool of people who are underpaid or undocumented consistently. The table would be better if everybody had an opportunity to sit and say, I'm here. Even if they don't get citizenship, they might not get to vote. Many of them just want to work and enjoy their lives in the United States.
So, Allen, what happens to American workers, Black workers in particular, when immigration debates are framed as competition instead of policy design?
That's a great question. So let's start with the philosophy of work, right? If you think sum zero, because that's what this Western world teaches us to think, then you think there's a lump of jobs, right? And out of that lump of jobs, so many things can happen. Well, that's a fiction. There's not a lump of jobs, right? You just did the remember when, right? That telephone operator, she ain't got a job anymore. She's not picking the phone and calling people all the time. That little store that was on the corner selling, the now laters and whatnot, they don't exist that much anymore outside of the bodega with just candy on it, those little side shops, they don't exist anymore. Tons of jobs change with technology and time for the advancement of civilization. So you shouldn't think of it as a competition. That's how they win. They sit there with a pile of cookies on their plate and one cookie for the other person to have. And they look at you and they say, that person's trying to take your cookie when they have all the cookies. It is not the immigrant that's limiting you from your job pool. And you should not be assigned or relegated to the jobs that immigrants are doing. Why do people who've been in this country for as long as the other people need to have second level or third tier jobs under their own assessment? Why do we need to have the manual jobs, right? Why are we concerned about white people having those jobs? That sort of fiction that exists in the world. And things have changed. We know that in a lot of fast food places, many people aren't American or first generation because you can't make enough money to live. That's a living wage issue. That's not a job issue. So this competition thing is on different sectors. Let's start with the first one is some of the jobs Americans don't want to do. So that's number one. Number two, that neuroscientist job, you weren't going to do that job because you don't have the degree. So if that immigrant took your job and you never had a degree, then that's a personal problem. Number three, we need to choose and educate our children better with regards to the occupations for which people are hiring for. We still do this industry where we think, oh, I'm going to be a business major. But I don't know what that is unless you're going to tell me what after you're going to do with that. I'm a philosophy major. Great. What after philosophy? I'm a law degree. I got a law degree and I knew I was going to be a law. You can have a general studies degree, but what are you practically going to be doing? We have shamed the industries that built up Black society. We don't want people to be plumbers and landscapers and welders anymore. There are no American welders in this country. People with a trade, right, have a lot of different skill sets. And the first one being, you know what that AI company is not going to be able to do? Plumbing, construction, wire your home, right? But you know what they will be able to do? General business skills, general accountant, all of those things. So when you're thinking about the future, your challenges right now shouldn't be the immigrant. You should be worried about AI. And they have told you so, right? Today, Jack Dorsey at his Cash App company said he's laying off 40,000 people because he can get a computer to do it better.
Wow.
Amen.
I mean, there is a lot to unpack there. As super excited about corporations and farmers and who would be working on these jobs. Now, you have done a lot of work when it comes to I-9s, and of course, you did an audit with a big Fortune 10 company, I think with about 250,000 employees. So with your experience, with what you did and that experience, what did that experience teach you about how unprepared many corporations are when it comes to immigration enforcement?
So let's frame this in different worlds, because that was for a merger that was happening that I did my audit. Okay. Right now, many of the audits are directed by ICE. And when we talk about Minneapolis and Minnesota, many of those are directed at mom and pop shops, 10 employees, 25 employees that would never see an audit in the past, right? It is the doorway to sort of get in and get more information. So it's paper, right? And when you're trying to get a lot of work done and you're a small company, there's a lot of compliance issues that the government could remove from you and make easier instead of making harder. And this I-9 thing, while important, was created, right, way back when, not so long ago, as a way to verify someone's work authorization so they could work in this country. And many employers either don't do it or don't do it correctly. And there is training from the government, but in the course of everything you have to do, it becomes difficult because it's not the type of thing that someone's going to come in and check for you, right? It's not like the tax form that's filed with the government or something of that nature. There's going to be this yearly check. So what happens is you're a company, you're operating, you have all of these violations that happen over time because you don't train on it, no one's corrected it, no one's checked it. And so when the government comes by, they're just collecting cash because you didn't do it right. Time has already passed. The 3-day window's gone. We're going to fine you. So getting I-9s right for employers that are required to have it is super important. And for most employers that have these large corporations like the one I did, many people in the C-suite haven't completed the work authorization form because or you assume that they have work authorization because they're at such a high level. That's the first thing that you sort of see. Number two, it used to be 1 page, now it's almost 3 pages. You got to fill out all the boxes. You just got to fill out all the boxes. And the best way to fill out all the boxes is to have your company write a compliance program. This is how we do the I-9. This is how we do employment verification from step 1 to step 2. So whether if you're there or someone else is there, they can go to a written document and see exactly what the system is for ensuring that your company has work authorization. And the reason that's important is they can come by and they can fine you. And they generally are not going to try to shut down your business, but they're going to hurt your pocket a lot and maybe bring you some shame in the newspaper. But in addition to that, if they find that you're trying to hire people who didn't have work authorization, they could put you in jail, right? And you don't recover from that, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think this kind of leads to my follow-up question, which is regarding what should small and mid-sized businesses do. So should they follow that instruction that you just provided us?
Absolutely. And there is on the UCIS website, there's a nutshell to help employers. There's also free training courses to help employers. But also, if you go to your local chamber of commerce, they should have something to help you in this compliance space if you're not familiar with it. And it's something that you should put on your schedule like anything else to check every 2 to 3 years, like your handbook. When you are doing employment-based anything, it is important to have it written and important to have it modified on a schedule.
Thank you. Thank you.
We do have an interesting question here about a person who is a Mexican. His father is Mexican, born in this country, and he is an American citizen. And he mentioned the fact that he is visibly, he presents as Black, but he has a Hispanic last name. And talking about that whole notion of being prepared and carrying the iPhone, having his documents actually on his iPhone or on his person.
Right.
Well, thank you. That is Ralph Ochoa from Atlanta. Thank you for being here with us tonight, Ralph. Go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. No, so I think it's important to have those documents. So people are documented, people in any system, people need to have a plan. If you present as someone, you also may be South Asian or Asian presenting and be born here and perhaps not even speak English as well as others may. And so you want to have a plan for that protection. And so your phone, having a copy on your phone, let me tell you about giving people access to your phone. As a lawyer, I do not say that that's a smart thing to do. I also don't say that having a phone where you have facial recognition is a smart thing to do, because as you saw, when Romesa was picked up at Columbia, they took and held her phone in front of her face to access all of her information on her phone. So that makes it visible and easy for them, even at an airport or port of entry. So you want to have the code and not have that face recognition sort of thing going on, because they don't need to know all of your business. Who knows what's on your phone? Who knows? Why are you inviting people into your private life with all your phones? So that's A. B, you want to have the documents on you because you want to be able to present it to them. And then if they ignore it, then that's on them. But at least you presented it. It's not magic, because if people are going to be racist and everything else, they're going to do those things. Mm-hmm. It's just a way to sort of present to them for them to know, to see that your birth certificate. There have been cases with people who were born here in this country, close to the border, in which they presented their birth certificate, and some officers said that they're fake. So let's spend a little time in that for a second. There are different birth certificates for every one of the states and territories of the United States, and they vary over time. So there is not a single person, including me, who's seen many of them, who can tell you what a valid document looks like in general. So that concept of an officer saying, rather than taking it at face value, unless there's there are things that could tell you if a document's fake, right? If city is spelled wrong, if something's spelled wrong on a document, generally that's not a good document, right? But not someone's name, because someone can spell their name various ways. But if the Tennessee spelled wrong, Mississippi spelled wrong, Alabama, Georgia spelled wrong, with a J or something like that, those type of things are easy to say that document has a problem. But if the document doesn't have any spelling issues on it, then that's a valid document to sort of move forward with, within that sort of space to go through. But have that document in your wallet. If you are someone who's undocumented, and I don't mind speaking to you about this, and you've been here 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, it doesn't matter. If you came in on a visa, you should have your I-94 card with you, which they don't give to you anymore. You have to print it off of the internet. So you go to retrieve my I-94 card, and that tells you how long your status is. And you should carry that with you in your passport at all times. If you're a visitor to this country, be a student, be a worker, whatever it is, all times on your person, required by law. If you are someone who's undocumented and you may have a passport, you have anything else, you want to carry on your person today something that proves you've been in the country for longer than 2 years. What might that be? A rental agreement, a credit card bill, phone bill from years ago, things that can show that you've been here for 2 years. That way, if you are picked up by ICE, they can't remove you without a hearing. As long as you prove you've been here for more than 2 years and you're not within 100 yards of the port of entry, they can't remove you rapidly. It's going to slow the process down a little bit. You are undocumented. You need to talk to your relatives. In this country, we have a lot of people who are married to someone who's undocumented. So I'm a United States citizen. I'm married to someone who doesn't have documentation. I'm waiting on immigration law to change, or I've applied for a visa they're going to pick up abroad at some point in the future. You need to make sure that your spouse or your person knows what the plan is if you are captured or detained by ICE, meaning you have a schedule. If you're not following that schedule, they know to look for you. They know what your potential A number is. If you've ever applied for anything in this country or had a removal proceeding or any, your A number is the equivalent of your social security number with UCIS. They want to know your A number. They want to know where your accounts are, right? You don't want to have money in an account that nobody can have access to if you're removed from the country. They want to know where the money is, if you've hidden it under a mattress or whatever. You want them to know. If you have children, you want to make sure that you have a plan for your United States children to have someone to have custody of them through a legal document. If you have a home, if you have a real asset, all of those things, you want to be sure that you think about them in a process. And so the American Immigration Lawyers Association, which I'm a member of, we have done a lot of documents that I have put all over the internet with regards to, these are the things you should think about, have a plan. Here are your rights if you come in contact with ICE. Here are your rights as an employer. And I will be reposting them throughout the month of March. And I guess I might, Allen Orr Esquire on Twitter. I'm happy to sort of do that. But the most important thing you can do as someone who is in any immigrant status in this country is to stay informed.
Absolutely. And now, Allen, one question I had intended to ask previous to that one is the fact that you did mention earlier the importance of the representing Black and immigrant communities as far as immigration. Tell us a little bit about how their struggles are connected.
Okay, so the struggles are connected in that now this administration has a laser focus on stopping Black immigrants. And you say, how do you know that, Allen? Well, because they've already blocked off immigration from the continent. They've attacked Black immigrants. in Minnesota who've been here for decades that were invited here, right? The Somalis didn't just sort of happen overnight. We caused a civil war in their country, and then we, under President Bush, invited them here, and then they've been here building the society for a long time, and now we want to say, oh no, you're not American enough. So that's an issue. So at every angle of the immigration issue, whether it be detention or anywhere else, you will find that it's Black and brown immigrants that are either being detained, removed at a higher level, or excluded through programs that existed for a long time. The diversity visa program ended, right? Sort of concept. Stopping the student visas from these places, making it impossible for them to process from abroad. All of those things are laser focused on these Black communities. We know now that there is no stable government in Haiti, regardless of if the transitional team has ended. There is absolutely no reason for this country to remove 300,000 Haitians back to Haiti when we know it's not safe. And we have returned people to Haiti that have actually already been killed. So under those circumstances, we know that that's not the right thing to do. We also know it's not the right thing to do to put the children and those immigrants in long-term detention, pulling them out of the workforce, because many of those Haitians are working as home care provider for elderly people in this country, or some of them are being teachers. There's a wide variety of jobs they're doing. When you decrease the number of jobs in a society, it doesn't mean that other people are going to fill those jobs. And what you do is you shrink the economy. And I am happy that we can now look at Minnesota and Minneapolis and look and see what happened from ICE being there 2 weeks, causing the havoc that it caused for people not going to these businesses, not shopping, not buying things. And we see the economic loss they're now asking for. That is not the way forward. Another way forward, an option to all of this removal that costs millions of dollars and billions of dollars, is to say, okay, there are some immigrants that are worthy of status because of equity. We know they're here. They want to pay their taxes. We invited them here. Let's give them a path forward, because we haven't changed our immigration system since the 80s, where we've changed everything else around the world and they're working. So if you have a job and you've been here and you are one of those individuals that doesn't have a criminal background system, we're going to correct you. That doesn't mean everybody outside the United States should come here. Let's just deal with the people that are here. Yes, we need border security. Yes, we need border enforcement. Yes, not everybody can stay in this country. And yes, if you violate the law and you are an immigrant, you should be removed from the country. That's not the question we're having. The question we're having is, does it make sense to remove people that have been here for 10 or more years, that have U.S. citizens, and to shrink our economy at the cost of everyone else? And it does not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you all for your questions. As you can see, well, we have gone over, but it's our anniversary show, and we got Allen here, and Allen is laying it on us. I know you all's plates are full, so we're going to keep going. And I see some questions here, but we're going to keep going because we want to make sure that we ask Allen a few more questions before we let him go. And if we have some more time, we're going to get your questions in. But thank you all for being here. So, Allen, as the former president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and now the leader under the National Bars Association's immigration section, how important is it that Black legal voices are shaping immigration policy?
I think it's super important. And let me tell you the benefits of Black immigrants to this country. Let's talk about the first vice president. Let's talk about the first president. Let's talk about almost 70% of the Black people who sit in Congress. Let's talk about New York, Miami, Chicago. Let's talk about those pools of just Black immigrant beings, right, that exist. Let's talk about the rich culture and music and movies that come from our Caribbean heritage. Let's not exclude ourselves from that table by removing ourselves from the conversation about immigration, because we know if we're not in the room, we will not be included.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Lord. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
So,
you have the next question, I think.
Go ahead, Bobby. I'm sorry. I was getting ready to ask. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Now, I was going to I thought Sean had the next question, though. Am I wrong?
No, it was you. You were before him.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. So we were talking about Congress, and if reform actually happened tomorrow, Because we know that based upon your conversation, some of the things that we're experiencing live and local and late breaking, as they say on the news, if they were serious about reform tomorrow, what are the non-negotiables that you, if you were in the position of working with Congress, would insist upon?
Sure. So indefinite detention, non-negotiable, right? The equity that exists under the civil rights frame, non-negotiable, right? We're not sort of doing or excluding or treating people based on their nationalities. Your nationality does not make you a threat. It's an individual assessment on a case by case. Mm-hmm. Those are the non-negotiable sort of things of fundamental rights and human rights that should be in everything that we do in this country. The things that are important to sort of consider is we shouldn't give more money to enforcement than we do to growth. Our country has a foundation in which we provide more money to the military or more money to the prison complex than we do to the things that will prevent us from needing that. That's why shutting down USAID was such a horrible idea, right? Because that's sort of the soft powers that keep creating the immigrant influx to this country. We need to be broader in perspective and not just limited in a short-term view for a long-term problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yes. I am getting an education tonight. And
very much so. He's dropping wisdom.
Yeah, but I know that with our short time here, there's still so much more when it comes to immigration, because I can hear your wealth of knowledge, and I want to sit with you and have a dinner at a very nice restaurant and just talk for hours, but we can't do that. But let me get to my question. So there is so much misinformation circulating out there about deportation and asylum and employer liability. Let me ask, what is one top myth you wish people would stop repeating when it comes to these things, deportation, asylum, etc.?
The first one is that you can apply for asylum outside the country. That's functionally, you can't do that. Asylum is regulatory and it only applies to people inside the country. The second one is asylum is legal, right? After World War II, we decided after what we saw happen to our Jewish brothers and sisters that we were never going to let that happen again, and that there'd be a process to vet these individuals through asylum. And this is the big picture. If we wanted to change immigration, there's a way to do it. You pass an immigration bill. You don't do it through one branch of government. One person should have no decision over the equities of all the United States.
Yeah.
So if you want immigration reform, pass an immigration bill. A president changing policy only lasts for as long as that president, whether it be Obama or Biden or Trump. That doesn't make consistency that leads to business. Write a bill, pass a bill. That's the way to do immigration reform.
And if I hear you correctly, based on everything that we talked about tonight, I think you've already answered this follow-up question, and that is illegal immigration a major problem as it is being reported? Why or why not?
Yeah, so I think let's have a conversation about legal, because I think that's really interesting. Because let's in this space, let's talk about legal marriage, right? What does that really mean? That someone in our society has deemed it to be legal. So it's a spectrum, and I don't mean that as a lawyer to say that things are not legal or illegal, but immigration specifically is a spectrum. And someone who is undocumented today may achieve their document status in the future. So there is no person who is just illegal, right, in a word or a concept. They might be able to achieve some status. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about process, to sort of change those things. So when we think about things in this country like marijuana or alcohol, things that were regulatory prohibited or some kind of finding, and we decided that, that doesn't make sense for us to find this because the enforcement of it is more costly, and we're not removing it. So it's better for us to tax it and invite it into our culture than to fight against the water that's coming. And that's the same thing with immigration. It is easier to say, you know what, we're going to find these individuals and tax them and let them support our social security system that's falling apart and meet some of our decrease in populations than it is to say we're going to spend money to remove people who are making us money. That is just cost benefit analysis, stupid.
So we have had, as Sean has said, a rich night of information and wisdom. And I know that our listeners are going to be able to take some really, really important knowledge with them. And Allen, we thank you for that. So we're coming to the end of the interview, but I wanted to ask you before we close, for those who are listening, those who are fearful of the situation, job or employers who are unsure of the law, and certainly policymakers. You've given us a lot of information. What is your final message to us in this state of affairs that we find ourselves today?
This is what I invite people to consider from a biblical standpoint in this biblical time, right? Because every religion, all the major religions, whatever you may be, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, they all speak to welcoming the stranger. So that's a fundamental foundation of just the moral background in the faith of our country. And to remember that the way you build a church is expanding the tables, not excluding the room. And so when you think about a church in capacity, you never have a church saying, we don't have any room, right? There's no focus on it when it comes to humanity. You welcome people in and then you meet them where they are. And then justice sort of follows after that. So the thing that I would like people and policy people to remember most often, that these are individuals. And it hits different when you're that individual. It is rare for me to sort of speak to people and say, when you think about the immigrant, in many cases, someone who walked 500 miles, someone who took a train, left their family at home, took a bag, took a chance, didn't know if they would be able to get in, sit in a detention center, all kind of odd jobs in our meat plants, cutting chickens and hogs every day just so they can be able to eat. If you were watching a movie, you would be cheering for them. And in that movie, we would be the person who's disrupting their lives. Would you be cheering for us? Is that how we show love? Through hate? And if that's the foundation of our immigration policy, just what we hate, then is that America anymore? And my answer to that is no.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I told you this was going to be a show that you will remember for a long time. Allen, we have come to the end of our interview with you, but I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming back. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, especially in this climate that we're in right now. You have said so many things and have provided so many resources for our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, if we did not get to your question, they are listed on our website. When we finish the show, they will be there, and Allen will have access to them, and he is very open to answer your questions. But thank you for all tuning in. Allen, we're going to have you to go backstage, and we're going to bring you out before closing. But I want to say thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you're doing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will definitely see you before we close the show tonight. Thank you very much. Wow.
Wow.
Yes, indeed.
Lots of important information. This is when he said is service to our community. Absolutely.
And I
couldn't have said it better myself, Bobby. This was incredible. Well, wow, ladies and gentlemen. Well, again, we are at the end of the show. And I wanted to, before we close tonight, I thought it would be appropriate, which there's lots of it, but I thought that we should have some Black excellence that we share with you. And if you all are ready, let me share some Black excellence. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my Black excellence salute tonight is to someone who made history this week. Mayor Brandon Scott made history as the first mayor to be reelected in Baltimore in 2 decades. Tonight in our Black Excellence segment, we close by recognizing the leadership of Brandon Scott, who just, as I said, made history. Who knew, I mean, in the last 2 decades, under his leadership, Baltimore ended 2025 with 133 homicides, the lowest number in nearly 50 years, a nearly 60% drop since 2020. Non-fatal shootings declined. Juvenile homicide victims dropped by 78%. That's not just policy, that's lives saved. Vacant properties are down more than 24%, backed by a bold $3 billion reframe Baltimore strategy. The city closed on $150 million in affordable housing bonds to rebuild neighborhoods block by block. For the first time since 2014, Baltimore's population is growing again. Unemployment hit a historic low of 2.3%. Downtown revitalization is well underway. Tourism is up, and thousands of young people are working through Youth Works at $15 an hour. This is what Renaissance looks like, ladies and gentlemen. This is what intentional leadership looks like, ladies and gentlemen. Black excellence, Baltimore strong. Congratulations to Mayor Brandon Scott. That is my Black excellence salute for tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
And looking good while he's making history.
And looking good with that afro Sean pointed out today. Okay. What can I say?
That's great. That's impressive.
Next week, ladies and gentlemen, we are back next week. We're going to bring some gospel to the show to open up the month of March with our episode called Tailor Made Praise with Dr. Will Harris on faith, music, ministry, and building a global gospel legacy. He will be with us next week. And for our words of the week, thank you, Bobby. America is a nation of immigrants. All of us are immigrants. The only ones that are not immigrants are the Native Americans. Everybody came from somewhere else, and how quickly we forget. Those are our words of the week. And if I could ask our producer to bring Allen back to the platform tonight so we can say goodbye to him. Once again, great show. He said, happy anniversary to all of you.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you, Allen. Keep doing the work you're doing. And again, I can't say enough how thankful I am that you blessed us again tonight.
Happy to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's supposed to be beautiful in DC tonight, this weekend, but no shorts, please. But we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of He Said.
He said.
He said.
And
He said. All right. You all have a great weekend. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thanks, everybody. Be well.